Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, ice cold Pepsi Cola, alongside TiderInsider.com's Rodney Orr, who just got a haircut, like me.
Hey, you did too.
I guess great minds think alike. We both saw the barber today. I'm Gary Harris, and you know what, Rodney? Let's start off with softball, and really a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde performance for the Alabama softball team at the College World Series in Oklahoma City. Pat Murphy's girls made school history by winning their first two games at the CWS. That's the first time they had ever done that. They've defeated both Cal and Baylor in shutout fashion. 1-0 and 3-0. Did not give up a run, but on Sunday against Florida, their old nemesis did them in again. It got ugly early. In game one, 11 runs in the first inning by Florida. That's a Women's College World Series record. In fact, we may not ever see it again. 16-2 wound up being the score of the first game. But Bama still had an opportunity to come back and win that second game. And had they done that, they would have advanced to the World Series championship round against Arizona State. But the second game was a continuation of the first game. Dunn got lit up for two more homers in the first inning, and Alabama lost that game 9-2 as well. So it was not a good performance against the Gators.
Sometimes it's one of those days where everything goes their way, and it might have been that way in that first game. You know, they got all the breaks, they got all the hits, they all got, you know, everything went their way, and nothing went our way. So it just was a big old snowball effect.
Now, Rodney, when you discuss this World Series, again, a tale of almost two separate situations. They win over two good teams, Cal and Baylor, with pitching and defense, not a lot of hitting. Then against Florida, they just implode. Really embarrassing. There's no other way to put it. I mean, you never want to get put out, but to get put out like that was not what anybody envisioned. And I know Alabama wants to win a World Series championship. They're one of the great programs in the country. But right now, clearly, Florida seems to be a better program right in the SEC. The SEC regular season championship, notwithstanding for Alabama, the Gators just have Alabama's number right now.
Well, they've got firepower. I mean, man, you watch the game, you watch both games, and you're talking about Kelsey Dunn. I know there was a lot of people that were critical of her, but that's a lot of pressure. That's like Gene Stallings trying to beat Steve Spurrier, was scoring 17 points back in the 90s. I mean, you've got to have some run support. Alabama just didn't have any firepower. And again, I know Kelsey Dunn struggled somewhat, but still, at the same time, I mean, you know, Alabama, obviously, to me, just watching what I've seen of it, they need some more firepower at the plate.
Well, that's a good point. You see Florida, you see Arizona State. What Arizona State did to Florida last night was the same thing Florida did to Alabama. And you see a baseball mentality, big sticks throughout the lineup. Alabama still plays a speed game. They led the nation in stolen bases. They've got some slap hitters. They've got some power throughout the lineup. But these type clubs, Florida and Arizona State, I mean, 1 through 9, they've got people that can take you over the fence. And you have to wonder, does Alabama need to look at retooling its team if it's going to win a World Series championship?
Well, maybe so. I mean, it just appears to me, though, Gary, if you want to beat Florida, you can't expect to do it, you know, 4-3 in those types of games. Just, you know, just from what I've seen, what little bit I've seen, to be quite honest with you, because they have a lot of firepower. They come out swinging.
All right, Alabama has had little success, as we mentioned, against Florida the last few years. They've lost regular season series the last 3 years, in fact. They've lost to the Gators in the SEC championship game a couple of times. And, of course, everyone remembers the walk-off grand slam in the semifinals of the 2009 College World Series with 2 outs that gave Florida the victory. You begin to wonder, is it a mental thing now with the Tide against the Gators? And you also have to wonder, after the way she pitched in that first game, should Kelsey Dunn have gotten the start in game 2?
Well, again, you know, I mean, I'll leave those decisions to Patrick Murphy. He certainly knows more about the strategy in that regard than I do. But, you know, I still go back to, Gary, what we're talking about. You know, you can say it's mental or whatever. It's just obvious to me that Florida's a better softball team right now, and a better softball program a little bit. And I know that sounds a little bit, you know, when you consider that Alabama won the SEC, that, you know, I'm certainly not trying to take anything away from Alabama, but when you watch, you know, the games that we watched this weekend, and maybe it was just this weekend. I haven't seen enough of both teams to know, but I'll say this again, you know, when you see what Florida can do at the plate, that's pretty impressive.
And then you look at what Arizona State did last night, and it's really amazing. But as you said, when you look at the body of work, it's a great year. SEC regular season champions, over 50 victories again this season. The highest ever national finish, a third-place finish at the Women's College World Series. So a lot to be proud of and a lot to hang your hat on, no doubt about that. But again, we're not trying to be harsh here and be critical just for the sake of being critical. But this is a program that has set a standard. And for the record, Coach Patrick Murphy has said, hey, the goal is to be the first SEC team to win a Women's College World Series. So that's what we're grading Alabama against. We know that they're one of the premier programs in the country. That is a given. But again, the goal is to win it all. And when you go out there and you meet Florida, a team from your conference, and you get beat 16-2 and 9-2, it is a tough pill to swallow. The good news, though, Rodney, only 2 seniors. Whitney Larson, the great shortstop, Kelsey Dunn, the pitcher, everybody else is back. Another top-tier recruiting class is coming in. So there is reason to believe that Alabama could be in this position again next year. And eventually, you think a program of this caliber is going to knock the door in and win a World Series championship.
Well, you'd sure hope so. And again, I think it's obvious, you know, they won the SEC, we know that. But, you know, Florida's the team that they've got to surpass here in this league. And if they can do that, then they would be playing Arizona State right now. And again, you talk about Arizona State. I mean, look what they did to Florida last night, demolished them. So, again, man, they play some really good softball out there, no question.
Florida and Arizona State, game 2 of that series tonight. Well, the Alabama baseball season came to an end on Monday in Tallahassee. The Tide beat Central Florida twice, but lost twice to Florida State. You hate to say it was expected, but it really was. Florida State, the 5th overall national seed, the home team, and they laid it to the Tide a couple of times. When you're talking about Alabama baseball, though, unlike softball, it's a little bit of a different scenario right now. This Alabama team picked to finish 5th in the West Division, so not a lot of high expectations. They might have overachieved, if anything, to get to a regional final after getting to the super regional final last year against Clemson. But the bottom line with baseball, Rodney, it looks like, is that the team is going to have to upgrade the talent level.
Well, I think so. Again, I agree with everything you said, Gary, and I think maybe they did overachieve. But, you know, it comes a point when I think that, you know, with Mitch Gaspard's recruiting, certainly they're going to have to take it to another level. And again, they were extremely competitive, probably overachieved, and I think now it's time to kind of take that next step.
Yeah, defensively and pitching, although the pitching depth wasn't great, the starting pitching was good enough. This team lacked firepower. They just couldn't, you know, generate enough offense. They only had 23 home runs for the season. That includes the postseason. Keep in mind that Kent Mathis hit 28 by himself in 2009. Of course, the bats have been changed, but still, they lack some firepower offensively. Still, though, Mitch Gaspard seems to be doing a good job of getting the most out of his club. As we said, we think if he can get, you know, the talent level up to the top-tier teams in the SEC, he's certainly proving that he's a good game manager, a good coach, and can get his ball club to perform at a high level. So that's really the only thing.
And I think all those things you're saying are true. And also, Gary, I think that Mitch Gaspard's really one of his strengths is, in my opinion, I think he's been a very good evaluator of talent through the years. And I'm talking about going back to when he was chief recruiter here under Jim Wells. You know, he's an outstanding evaluator of talent, and he really relates well to the kids, I know, in terms of recruiting.
Well, coming up, there will be changes to football recruiting in the SEC. We'll tell you what decision was made at the conference meetings last week down at Sandestin. And still to come, an Alabama linebacker says he is transferring to another school. We'll have the latest on Petey Smith and why he's taking his services elsewhere. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls and emails. As always, the number 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. All right, big news from the annual SEC meetings at Sandestin last week, and right off the bat, very controversial new rule. The coaches voted 12-0 in favor of keeping the signing limit at 28. The presidents come right behind them and vote 12-0 in favor of changing it to 25. Rodney, we'll talk more about these other two, but right off the bat, the idea of going from, you know, 25 or 28 to 25 is something the coaches don't care for too much.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, look at when you look at it over 4 years or 5 years, that's 15 players that you don't get to sign. That's 15 players that we've talked about that maybe wanted to have an opportunity to play at Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, that might not get that opportunity. And we talked about last week, you know, we talked about bringing in guys over the limit. We mentioned John Parker Wilson, we mentioned Drew Davis, and some other success stories. So some of those things you won't hear about anymore.
All right, we also saw on there no campus, on-campus 7-on-7 drills anymore with these camps where they get the 7-on-7 and they do the passing camps, no longer to be on campus. I guess some people felt like that was an advantage for the schools that might be hosting those events. How do you see that?
I mean, you know, it's just another rule, Gary. I mean, you know, they had them at all the schools. I mean, they take place at all the campuses. So I'm not sure who actually complained about that, but all those, you know, groups, the Badger Sports and the different ones that put together these 7-on-7, they need a place to play. They need a place to, and so they would bring them to these schools, and now they're going to end up going to Sanford and places like that.
All right, and as we talked about last week, we expected this to happen. They're going to go to no divisions in basketball. It'll be 1 through 12, just like it is in the women's side of SEC basketball. I don't really understand that myself. I think if you have divisions in one sport, you should have them in all. But it will no longer be divisions beginning the season after this one, and the scheduling will be the same for the season coming up. All right, that's what happened at the SEC meetings. Up next, Rodney has his weekly football recruiting update. Some more big-time prospects on the Alabama radar. Plus, we'll be taking your phone calls and getting your email questions, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, titv@wvuatv.com. We're coming right back after this. Alabama linebacker Petey Smith announced on Monday that he's transferring to Holmes Community College in Mississippi. He told the Birmingham News, quote, "Basically, I just felt that I wasn't giving it my all. I'm not going to say I wasn't happy. I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to show what I could do with reps and everything. Instead of waiting, I thought I'd go somewhere else." Now, Roddy, this is a position where Alabama has got a lot of talented players. Your thoughts on Petey Smith, who had 3 years of eligibility left, deciding to go ahead and transfer out to community college in Mississippi?
Yeah, and I think it's a good move for him in terms of I think he's going to open up opportunities for himself to get some playing time. And again, he just got into a situation where he's behind some guys, never could get ahead of them. And even the guys that he competed against that he came in with, he was behind. I mean, you know, Gary, when you come in and you want to play, and this is nothing against Petey, I know he lost a lot of weight, but you've got to stay in tip-top shape. You have to do everything you're supposed to do on and off the field to give yourself an opportunity to compete. And that's nothing against Petey Smith. I mean, this is let's face it, Alabama's got a lot of good players.
So even with his departure, linebacker still a very strong position for Alabama.
No question.
All right, so Petey Smith will go to Holmes Community College in Mississippi, and obviously then he will hope to re-sign with a four-year school after a year there, whether it be in the SEC or another conference. All right, time to talk recruiting, and this is a part of the show where everybody that is an Alabama fan listens very closely to what you have to say. And we are going to start with one of the top prospects in the country, and a guy that you have said for some time, both on our program and on TiderInsider.com, that you felt very good about Alabama's chances with Gunnar Kill, ranked by many as the top high school quarterback in the country in the class of 2012. 6'4", 220 pounds, out of Columbus, Indiana. He's supposed to make a decision, I think, this coming Sunday. Where does Alabama stand? Well,
and I don't know that he's going to definitely make that decision on Sunday, Gary. And I think Alabama has been in great shape with Gunnar Kill. And in fact, talking to a whole lot of people that follow it and that are very close to it, close to that situation, they felt for quite a while, I mean 6 weeks or longer, that Alabama's been the leader. Now there's some speculation this week, the last couple of days, that maybe Oklahoma is kind of taking the lead, and there's talk that he may visit Oklahoma this week and may make a commitment to them. We'll see. I know Missouri's certainly been in the mix as well. Some people think Missouri and Alabama are the top two. So, you know, the thing about it is Gunnar Kill's not really saying much himself in terms of the schools he's looking at, nor is his high school coach, so it's really difficult to get a read. But, you know, again, I stay with what I've said. I think all along Alabama's been in great shape. I think that, you know, if you want to say that they led, I believe that. It's up until here recently. And I just don't, frankly, know exactly where it stands right now.
All right, good analysis right there on Gunnar Kill. Of course, if you bring in top-tier quarterbacks, which is what Alabama is doing, they've got to have young men to throw the football to. Quentin Smith, wide receiver out of Dillon, South Carolina, another one of these guys that's tall, fast, and can go and get it.
Yes, he is. And you got an offer yesterday at Alabama's camp, and 6'3", roughly, 198, you see it there. Not really great speed, but good speed, 4'6", and he plays fast. And if he wasn't a good-looking player, he certainly wouldn't have gotten an offer yesterday from Nick Saban. Florida, LSU, Auburn, Virginia Tech, those are some of the other schools that top his list. Alabama's in his top 5. Again, Alabama's recruiting a lot of really good receivers.
All right, Roddy, this next prospect might be a new name for some folks. I'm not used to seeing 340-pound centers.
Yeah.
But Matt Cochran out of California is big, and don't look at 340 pounds and think he can't move because he's fast and athletic.
Really interesting story, Gary. His dad, Rod Cochran, is a minister out in California, is from Birmingham, from Holy Family High School, as you remember. Earl Banks,
right.
and Maurice Myers, the great basketball players that came out of that school. Matt, his family, the big Alabama fans, wanted to come in and try to show the Alabama staff what he could do in an effort to fulfill a dream of playing for the Crimson Tide. So, we'll see what happens. He'll finish camp tomorrow. He's going through the entire camp process. Some guys leave after a day or two. No, he's staying here. He wants to fully impress the Tide staff in hopes of getting an offer.
Alabama is working coast to coast looking for defensive tackles, and right in the heartland, the Midwest of Kansas City, Missouri. This is a good one right here. Andre Pipkins.
He sure is, Gary, and he's very excited about Alabama. He's got a lot of offers. You're talking about Tennessee, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma. Several really top schools, including Alabama, have offered. And I know, again, I talked to Andre just a couple of days ago. He's extremely excited about Alabama. He wants to come down here for a visit this summer, if not certainly for a game next fall. He's one of the top players in the country at his position. And I think Alabama's in there pretty strongly. Again, Missouri is trying to hold these guys in state. We've talked about Dorial Green Beckham and Deron Neal from that state, and here's Andre Pipkins, another great player from that state.
All right, Landon Collins, we know is a great player, but why? Tell us why there's any reason to believe that he's not going to LSU.
Well, I wish I could, but I try to figure something out, and that is he's from Gizmar Dutchtown High School, same high school as Eddie Lacy. If you remember Eddie, when he came out of high school, LSU kind of shunned him a little bit. They didn't really recruit him hard. Eddie had been kind of injured. There were some questions maybe about his academics. Alabama stuck with Eddie throughout the process. Burton Burns did a great job of recruiting him, and now they're hoping that maybe they can land Landon Collins. And he was here for camp this week. When you're talking about a five-star prospect, Gary, Landon Collins is a five-star prospect.
All right, that's this week's recruiting update. We're going to take a phone call with Joseph in Tuscaloosa. Then we're going to have to get to a break and be back with more calls. But Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Gary?
Good.
How y'all doing today? Okay, now I understand. Okay, there's a thing about the SEC, how they're limited from down to 20 to 25, right?
Right.
Okay, now are they doing it just to the SEC or is it the whole NCAA college?
All right, Joseph. We also had a different question on the screen there, but the 28 to 25 is an SEC rule. Some other conferences do the same thing, but the NCAA. I understand you can sign more than 25 if you're at another school. This is being dictated by the Southeastern Conference. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back with more phone calls right after this. Rodney and I are decked out tonight again in original elephant wear from the Locker Room located on the University Strip. We thank them for providing us with original elephant wear, whether it's a tie, a shirt, a pullover, pants, shorts. You can find it at the Locker Room, a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964. Go by Monday through Saturday, drop in on them. They're located on the University Strip, or you can look them up online at www.locker-room.biz. That's the Locker Room in Tuscaloosa since 1964. All right, let's go back to the telephones. John has been patiently holding over in Bessemer. John, welcome into the program.
All right, man, what's going on, Wrong Tide?
All right, go ahead, John.
All right, man, I'm talking about them two quarterbacks y'all talked about last week. Is one of them going to be better than John Parker Wilson or what?
Well, John Parker Wilson was pretty good. I'll tell you that. If you look through the record book at Alabama, you're going to see his name at the top of a lot of them. But, certainly these guys have all the athleticism, Rodney, the arm strength, a lot of physical ability with both these guys. Yeah,
and, again, these guys have an advantage of John Parker Wilson. They've came in under Nick Saban. I mean, John Parker had to go through some changes and what have you, but these guys have been in Nick Saban's system, and they've got a lot of ability, a lot of talent. Will they be better than John Parker Wilson? I don't know. The main thing is that they win football games. You look at Greg McElroy and the things that he did, and he got the most out of his ability and won football games, 24-3. You can't complain.
Not at all. All right, let's talk with Charles, who's next up in Hagler. Charles, go ahead.
Hey, guys, I just want to say how proud I am of the ladies and Roll Tide.
I hear you, Charles. No doubt about it. A great season, as we talked about earlier. 53 wins, I think only 11 losses. A third-place national finish. Another great season. But I do know what the goal is for Patrick Murphy and company, and that's to win a World Series, a Women's World Series. So a great year, but there's still unfinished business at the University of Alabama in regards to softball. All right, let's take an email. This is from Mike. What does the football talent level in the state of Alabama look like? And for 2013 specifically, Rodney.
2013?
Yeah, we ain't got finished with 2012 yet, Mike. But
listen, you hear a lot about the year before how great the talent's going to be, and then things kind of change. And, you know, hey, there's a lot of great players in the state of Alabama for 2013. There's a lot of really good ones for 2012 as well. So, you know, that's the one we're kind of trying to take care of right now.
Yeah, but there's always going to be some top Division I prospects in the state of Alabama, and that's where Alabama always starts its recruiting and then goes out from there. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back right after this. And before we close it out, you Bama football fans, get ready for an early start to the season opener. Alabama announced last week that the kickoff against Kent State will be at 11:20 a.m. and will be televised by the SEC Network. So get your breakfast food ready for your game day experience and your tailgating. Meanwhile, it was announced today that the Penn State game will be a 2:30 kickoff up there at Penn State and will be televised nationally by ABC. This will be the Crimson Tide's first visit to Happy Valley since 1989. That's going to do it for the program tonight. Dinner this evening for Rodney and I and the rest of the TI crew will be over at the Pottery Grill in Northport. We'll be enjoying some of that great barbecue. Why don't you come by and join us? And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can watch it anytime. Go to our website, WVUATV.com. We'll have it posted later on this evening. We'll also have a rebroadcast of it tonight here at 10:35 on WVUA. Thanks for watching Tider Insider TV. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We'll see you again next week.